established in 1962, I might add. Anyway, at 1:31, it's my pleasure to welcome to the Highland Cafe program Rona. Welcome, Rona.
Hi there, John.
Yeah, good on you. Now, dear listener, Rona's popped in to just advise us. Now, you might think it's a little bit unusual, but we touch unusual subjects on the, as long as it's not religion or politics, dear listener. Don't ring me about that. I'm not that controversial. But the topic that Rona's going to bring up, we don't talk about enough. So, Rona, I'm stepping back from the microphone for a second, Rooney Dooney.
Yep.
And would you tell them, why don't you start by telling the listener what tomorrow's day is?
Okay, tomorrow is called the Dying to Know Day. It's a national day that the Groundswell Project, which is a non-profit project, has initiated to try and get communities to talk about end-of-life issues and to talk about death. I know it's not a very popular subject, but it is very much part of life, and being able to talk about these things and be better prepared means that we're all going to live better lives as a result.
Well, that's what I reckon. And you might be, I don't know if it's like this, but you might be proud of me when I tell you that I've taken to, quite often with the birthdays, if there's a singer who's had a birthday, if they've died, I actually say they've died rather than they've passed away.
Yes.
I'm just to get myself into the habit.
Yes. Well, look, using more practical terms helps people to come to terms with the reality of life, and look, it doesn't always have to be grim and miserable. My particular interest is because I'm a celebrant, and I belong to a national civil celebrants association network, which is a non-profit group, and we're suggesting to people that there are many ways to honour people's lives, and sometimes we can do that through birthdays and wedding anniversaries and celebrate people before they die and honour them and respect them and say thank you for the contribution they've made in our lives, but also that there are perhaps different ways of doing that after the person's died as well. So tomorrow my Celebrant Association's hosting an hour and a half information session at the Old Town Hall in Bowral, the Henrietta Room, to just talk about particularly the importance of the ceremony and how we are able to cope with those losses by coming together, supporting one another and really valuing the life of the person who's died.
Yeah, you bet, because we don't talk about this. Dear listener, you might very well be interested in just tootling along and having a listen. This is a good thought and a good, well, I'm going to call it a project, and a very worthwhile project. Just before I forget, I might say it again. What time?
It's 2:00 tomorrow at the Henrietta Room, which is at the rear of the Old Town Hall in Bendooley Street, but just in front of the Bowral Library. There's parking obviously across the road there around Coles and the Springett's Arcade.
All right, now this is the local Celebrants Association contribution to.
Yes, we have our association is running another workshop down in Bateman's Bay as well. So this is the first year that we are starting to participate in the Dying to Know Day. I know there are other people in the community who run events. You'll probably find there's some death cafes come up, which is where people get together for the afternoon and just have a general chat about, death and how it's impacted in their lives. So the Dying to Know Day has a website, which is dyingtoknowday.org, has a list of events, different ones. And look, if you've got listeners outside our area, there would be events happening elsewhere to have a look at that. Our Celebrant Association, as I said, is particularly important, is particularly interested in encouraging people to take time around planning their ceremonies and doing that well, because that's part of the process of healing that we go through when we're dealing with loss and grief.
Well, here, Yeah, and I mean, this is probably nothing new. I can't imagine I've had this. I'm the only one to have this thought that farewells, funerals, memorial services, whatever we call them, are as much for those of us that haven't died yet, for the living as much as for the dead.
Oh, well, of course,
Close, yeah.
of course. And look, I think that in our individualistic society, we've got to sort of, well, in my opinion anyway, we tend to feel that our life is our own. It's nobody else's business. I'm an individual. I'll decide what happens with my dying and what happens with my funeral. Well, look, part of that is true. We do need to make decisions about what we want to happen with our body. But really, the ceremony is the way in which the people who are left behind are able to cope with the passing. So I tend to think about our lives as not just being our own. They're also part of our family and friends, and that we need to give them permission to get together and honour us in whatever way we like. I mean, I've heard a few stories where people have said, "Oh, look, forget having a funeral or a ceremony. I'm putting some money on the bar, and you can all go and have a bit of a booze up." Well, that's not really going to help those people who are grieving really, strongly about that person. And secondly, look, whatever life we've lived, it's an example of how we've lived a really unique and individual life. And our children and grandchildren need to know, particularly in a society where religion's no longer in our society, being a major part of our functioning, our grandchildren need to know how to live a good life, what we can contribute in our own special way. And that's what I see as the really important part of making sure that we tell our stories, and that we, at the end of our life, people are able to sum up who we've been and what we've been to them, and what importance we've been in their lives.
And sometimes, I don't know if you've come across this, but sometimes it's not the person who's touched by, so-and-so's died, the person who's left, who's touched by somebody's dying, may not be we won't even call them a friend, forget a good friend, not a friend, they're not a relative, but they might have been serving this person for years, let's say,
yes,
or worked with them. Well, we don't,
yes.
You work with people as we should, in a congenial fashion and support your workmates. But it doesn't mean you hang out, after work or at all. But I just think that's sometimes people don't, even family members. Oh, it's just a family. It's just a family.
Well, look, I think
very well, but out me.
Well, I think the thing is that we are very complex. We're not just in many ways. We show we have different roles and different faces with different people. In fact, this morning I talked to a friend who said, I think that the person I work with sees more of me than my husband. And sometimes a person can be very difficult and crotchy and cranky in the family situation and just be the life of the party somewhere else. And that's very confusing for the family, for example, to know. But, when a life comes towards its end, putting together the different perspectives is a way of seeing the whole person, not just one angle of who that person is. And as you say, I mean, we can touch people's lives in just being in a cafe and offering to pay a coffee for that person when they've lost their purse, and it might be just an act of kindness that really has encouraged them for that day. Our lives touch on people in a variety of ways, don't they?
Well, indeed, and I think that loved ones, like it could be, let's say, the spouse. That's the closest you can get. Sometimes they don't appreciate this, and I have a very strong example myself. No names, no pectoral, and not that you or the listener knows them, but where some time ago, somebody I know died, and his wife happened to be the the bloke who died, wife, didn't want to hardly tell the family. I mean, close family, yes, but family, no, and sort of wanted to keep it a secret. And this bloke that died would have worked with people for decades.
Yes,
They would have been aware of him, and I think that they should have been given the opportunity.
Well, the other thing that's difficult, John, is the fact that we come from probably cultures where the bodies would have gone on the nose if we hadn't buried people fairly quickly. We didn't have refrigeration and so on. So the whole need to bury the person fairly quickly has come forward into our practices today. Whereas when you think about it now, we've got good refrigeration, and also a lot of people would prefer to be cremated, and there's really no need to have the ceremony over and done within 3 days. I think maybe what happens is that in that case with the wife, she might have been so traumatised and in such grief that she couldn't cope with planning to have a whole lot of people come along. I remember my mother saying something like that about my dad, that she was just still in such a terrible state of grief. Whereas, there's a lot of more people. I think there's a trend towards, particularly the baby boomers, considering to have a memorial, 3 or 4 weeks later, where you've got time to plan, and it can be on the weekend, it can be on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday before lunch, where that you've got time to plan that, people can come in. I know that in Victoria, for example, there are a lot of evenings and weekend funerals that doesn't seem to have impacted on us in New South Wales so much. But people are busy, and having to take time out of a work week also makes things difficult.
That too, yes, indeed. Yes, I'm all for memorial services, where quite often it can be either way. It doesn't matter whether the person's been just with the family, close family, buried or cremated. And then memorial services, I think that's an excellent, quite frankly, an excellent idea. But then again, my folks were on first generation from. You wouldn't know it, but anyway, first generation from Greek, so Greek Orthodox. So it was a church wedding, but then the hall next door, we had our we had the wake, so to speak. I call it a wake. It's not so much fun as I imagine an Irish wake
would be. Yep.
But you still get together, and the folk who are who are still alive. You get to talk to people, and let's face it, you see people you haven't seen for ages. Now, look, we've got about just a few minutes left, so I'm going to pipe down. You say something that you'd like to, Rona, that you want to focus on.
Well, the event for tomorrow, if people want more information or to be able to contact me, our Celebrant Association website is celebrations.org.au. That's celebrations plural.org.au, and we have an events section there. When you click on that, there's community events, and you'll be able to go down to the Dying to Know Day and the activity we're having in Bowral. We were asking people to register, but look, at this time, we're happy for people to come along. We really just wanted to have an idea for, buying the tea and coffee and the biscuits.
Of course.
We didn't know whether we were going to be catering for 5 or for 50.
Yeah.
So, so people are just welcome to come along at 2:00 tomorrow. But if they want more information, then celebrations.org.au and go to events, community events.
Rona, I think it's a terrific idea, quite frankly. You may not think of it, dear listener, as a fun outing, but it's a very worthwhile. An hour or so, you figure?
Yes, an hour to an hour and a quarter. We're planning on around an hour, and then time for people to be able to ask questions and have a chat, and perhaps even look at what sorts of things they might like to know more about later.
Yeah.
So, because it's a huge topic, no doubt, and we've all had our own experiences of good funerals and ones that haven't been so good. So, being able to plan to do our best is what we're on about.
Yeah, this is so true.
And I'll just lastly say too that civil ceremonies are not always non-religious. That civil ceremonies are usually ones where the family can determine what content they would choose, and so it's not a matter of either or. It's about how do we accommodate everyone regardless of their views, their religious views.
Good point. Well done, Rona. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, and I hope you enjoy your Greek wakes as they come along.
There've been a few lately. I think I'm the next to go.
Oh, look, I say to my husband, the trouble is now we're going to more dispatchings than we are hatchings and matchings. So as you get older, that seems to happen.
Oh, crikey. Oh, well, what do you do? As my cousin Jim says, what do you do every time he has to go in a hospital or something?
Well, we enjoy every day. I think the thing is we enjoy every day now and try and put a little bit of time aside to plan for the future, but mostly enjoy today.
Yeah.
It's the only day we've got.
Rona, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, John, too, for your time.
Oh, no, it's been a pleasure. Good on you.
Okay, bye.
Cheers.
Bye.